Good evening. I'm going to call the special meeting to order and welcome all. This is a special meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meeting Act. At this time, we will be going into an executive session for approximately 60 minutes. The purpose of this executive session is to evaluate the qualifications of applicants for public employment and to discuss with legal counsel potential litigation and the legal or financial risk of a course of action.
is good.
Wait for
Yeah.
Joe a few minutes.
He went, took a little break there.
Good evening. It's 5:31, and I would like to welcome all of you. Good to see young people in our crowd. So excited. This is a special meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meeting Act. This listening session will take place for approximately 2 hours. And a little housekeeping, Director Farah and our Chief Accountability Officer will be attending via Zoom, Dr. Jill Harmon, so you'll see them up on the screen. And first of all, I'm going to go through the roll call. Vice President Bento.
Present.
Director Farah. Director Farah. He's here. Okay, I'm going to continue. Director Benninger.
Present.
Director Clark.
Present.
And obviously, I'm here, so. Director Farah, are you hearing us?
Yes, I can hear.
Are you here?
I'm here. Sorry.
We did roll call, you are here. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
No
I'm here.
problem. All right, and I'd now like to, we're on to 2.0. I'd like to call on Interim Superintendent Vela for introduction. Mr. Vela.
Thank you, President Hamada. Welcome, everyone here tonight. I'd like to introduce Mr. Randy Heath, our Associate Superintendent of Schools and Academic Support, who will be introducing a number of folks today, and excited for him to share the next steps for our presentation. So, Mr. Heath.
Thank you. Good evening, President Hamada, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Vela, and Ms. Curry. Thank you for being here tonight. We are very excited to share a process that has been going on for several months in the planning and the execution of listening sessions. When we talked last year around the new requirement around school resource officers and safety services officers, part of that is around gathering community input. And so we were tasked with really trying to have an authentic system to hear the voice of our most important clients in the district, and that is our students. And so we decided to start at the high school level, and we really wanted to build upon some things that has been said from the dais by some of our board members, which is really the best student input comes when they have the ability to help design the process and lead the process. And so we took that to heart. And when our new director of equity came on board, I immediately took that opportunity to reach out to her and say, hey, we're looking to try to build a model that can be used not only for the conversation around school safety, but also around other things that we might want to gather student input from. And so that's what we did, and where our hope is to replicate this in other schools around the district around a variety of different topics. And so I'm going to hand this off right now to the aforementioned Director of Equity, Simone Hamilton, to kind of share with you how we came across this process, and then we'll be quiet and let the students speak.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. As Randy mentioned, The goal with this was traditionally, you know, we take our approach to engaging with students is just like we've created a space, now tell us everything. And we miss out on the opportunity to build the relationship and to truly listen. Because I think if we're going to learn from students, to lead with them, we have to start by listening. So they all filled out the Student Equity and Inclusion Survey from November until January. We did about 2 months of analysis with the DARTS team on that, and one of the top 3 things that came out as next steps that we could do was students wanted engagement opportunities. They wanted more opportunities to not just be engaged in things, but to lead the things, not to just give an opinion, but to create the space and the opportunity to not only share that opinion, but their subsequent ideas on how to either look into that concern, build off that idea, and work together. And so we really took that student-centered approach, like Randy said. I like to call it kind of like FUBU, for you, by you. And the students were actually able to get together, and it wasn't like we're gonna have a group of students come together and tell us everything. It was like we're gonna bring you together to curate the experience for your peers, and thinking about asking them questions. How do they want their students to feel in that? How do you want them to be able to come in and share what they're thinking? And so with that, I partnered with my teammate, who I'd like to call up here now, Tiara Frost, who took a really strong leadership role in that at the buildings. And she's gonna tell you a little bit more about what that process was like. But I appreciate the partnership from Randy and his team, from Sherry Simpson, from Nathan Hassan and Duran Woods over there in the back, shouts out, who really, we kind of hit the ground running. And a special thanks too to all the principals who were able to gather students, bring them together, have their listening sessions. And like Randy said, I also think this is a really powerful model to what it is to be a part of the conversation together, collectively surfacing the problem, being able to have the conversations to get to the root to it, to then begin the ideation process of what does that responsive, liberatory design look like to address some of these issues. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear what the students have shared and what came up for them, but also their ideas about how to respond and make their school community a better place and the leadership role they want to take in that. So pass it over to Tiara.
Hey everybody. I just want to give a shout out to the students first, because we spent, like, as you guys see, we spent 9 weeks together, and it was a long process, but it was like, I learned so much from them. And even being a former teacher, there were still things that I was hearing that I've never even heard before. So it was really amazing working with all these students. You know, we basically met 5 to 6 times to plan, and students basically, the first couple meetings, we kind of spent time just like getting to know each other, building community, because also they didn't know me or Nathan or Duran, and so we wanted to make sure they felt like they had a safe space. And so that's what we kind of did our first couple meetings. Then we kind of spent some time asking them questions around safety, around SROs, around SSOs at their schools, and they were able to be really open and honest, and it was really eye-opening, because I wasn't even aware of some of the things that I thought were issues were not issues, you know. So they were sharing a lot of really important information. And then yeah, there were some common themes across all the high schools that I noticed. There were some common things coming up that they all felt like this might be something that we need to work through or work on, and they all kind of expressed that they would like to do that together. So there is opportunity even for those high schools to collaborate in the future as well. They had a rich amount of suggestions and recommendations, like I said. And yeah, I want to give them the opportunity to kind of share more, because you guys are going to hear some good stuff from them. So should we just call this first school? Call the first school? Okay.
Well, first I'd like to thank you guys for listening to all our schools and like the things we want to work on.
If you don't mind, I'd like to introduce myself, and also, my name's Shaylee. I am a former senior at Kent Lake, and I want to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to be here and speak about this topic that we're very passionate about.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Ainsley Berry. I'm also a former senior at Kent Lake High School. And again, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to let us speak to all of you.
Hi, I'm Jackson Bartlett. I'm a sophomore here at Kent Lake. And just, yeah, thanks for listening to what we had to say.
Okay. The first thing that we'd like to talk about is the purpose of our listening session. We wanted to discuss school safety, specifically at our school, and how necessary SROs and SSOs have been and continue to be.
Our goal was to get the insight of we wanted to get as much voices as we can as possible. So what we did was get 4 students from each grade level so that we were able to get a good mix and to get more insight of, because it's not just like, not everybody's the same. Like the freshmen get to experience their own like issues, the sophomores, juniors, and seniors, you know, how it all develops or how it's just completely different. So the purpose or our goal was to get everyone's input and to hear everyone's voice and for them to get everything out what they needed to say.
We'll talk a little bit about our experience, and then we talked with the students that participated and their experience as well. So we had complete free range to design this process, which was very helpful because it allowed us to organize it the way we thought it needed to be and what needed to be discussed. We, as Shaylee said, this allowed us to gain a complete insight that we thought was necessary. And we weren't just allowed to design it, but we were allowed to come up with the topics that we thought were necessary to discuss.
How we chose the students was like people that we thought that bring a huge leadership role to our school, and people that we know that probably have lots of knowledge of like the issues going on. So the students felt comfortable expressing their views because there were no school faculty in the room and they felt no need to censor. So there was no adults in the room basically. So it was a very safe environment. They felt like they could say whatever and not having to worry about if they're saying something wrong or something like that's like inappropriate. So them having the comfort of just being with their peers. So it was good having them being able to speak up.
In our school listening session, I was in charge of hallway safety, so I asked questions based on what we wanted to see done for hallways, and the main things that came up were that fights happen, they need to be stopped as quickly as possible, which for the most part they do get stopped very quickly at our school. And just the SROs usually are people who help the students feel more comfortable in the hallways. They usually make kids feel better about walking through the hallways. It's always been good for them. And then the main issue there was a large issue for our school about like hallway harassment, just like touching, like physical contact, and then verbal. That was an issue that we'd heard from a lot of people. And then for our bathroom and parking lot safety, there was we wanted officers to be able to help outside helping like manage things. There were sometimes issues that arose outside in the parking lots, like people being loud with their cars and stuff like that. And it would be helpful for the SSOs and SROs to be out there just managing that kind of stuff. And then there was a large issue with our bathrooms. I think that's going to be a thing that's with every school. There's a lot of people in the bathrooms, and it's hard to break those groups up a lot of the time. And there's a lot of things like vaping and drug use in the bathrooms. And for social media, there's been issues like school accounts where people take pictures of things people don't want taking pictures of in school. Like there was an issue with people like taking pictures of people's like feet and like in the school. It was bizarre. And then just negativity on social media in our school, like, it's an issue. And then in the classrooms, there was issues with our, like, political arguments, people getting into just very heated arguments in these classes. And then it's like where these arguments should be brought up, like, was like, we want to draw a line when this is okay to have arguments about and when it's not okay. And then there was swear words, uncomfortable words that like get brought up in some like lessons that kids aren't exactly comfortable with.
If I may elaborate, so for part 2 minutes? Wow, okay. It's not just like for like the classroom when it gets like a little too political or there's sensitive topics. There's topics within that students like feel attacked or they feel unsafe. Like, you know, let's say like they bring up an argument about like the LGBTQ community. Like some staff or students will be bringing up very passionate negative comments about it, and some students don't feel safe in the classroom. So we feel like that's something that should be brought up and we should be more aware about, maybe be more thoughtful with our words.
We wrote a lot about the SSOs and SROs because specifically at our school, wow, that got loud. They're not just security for us. They are a huge part of our community and they are our family. A lot of people at our school don't have like a fatherly figure, and Jeff and Victor are that for us. I remember coming to school the first 2 months this year, pouring down rain, like it just would not stop, and Jeff was outside with an umbrella greeting everyone every day. It was insane. Like, I got a fist bump from him every day this entire school year, and if I was having a rough day, that was the one thing that I could look forward to. They are a huge safety net and helped a lot of people. They helped reintroduce people into our school community after the pandemic, and they're a huge part of our school. I've heard from other schools that it's not that way for them, but for us it is. And they are the most, I don't want to say important because everybody's important, but everybody knows them. And they make a point to have a relationship with every student at our school as most humanely possible as they can.
I think the relationship the students have with the SROs, or SRO, and the SSOs at our school is super important, extremely important. I don't think they realize how important they are to our school. They will do the most. Like they have their job obviously to do, you know, to make sure we're safe and to make sure everything's under control. But they do so much, like not just solve problems like that. If they see a student walking by and they're like, you can tell like they're not in a good mood, or if they're feeling down, they're always there for us, at least in our school. So more appreciation. I think they need more appreciation. And if there's a suggestion I can make, the job is a lot. Their job is a lot, and for them to be balancing like parking lot safety versus like and the inside the building, like that's just a lot. So if there could be more SSOs and SROs in the school, that would be greatly appreciated, if that's possible.
And then our goals for our next year, 2022, 2023, were having our teachers be able to talk, like make a set like thing for political conversations, like when we should stop them, when we should have them, and then working with the teachers to create protocols and norms for challenging conversations in the school, like racism and things that some people just aren't comfortable talking about. And it's like being able to have a set thing will greatly be appreciated. And then bathroom stuff, there's a lot of it. There's a lot that needs to be fixed in that area. Like just in general, there's a ton of things that need to be worked on there. Just a lot of people in there, a lot of people doing things that they shouldn't be in there. And then parking lot etiquette, just people being annoying in the parking lots. Happens often. And then hallway behavior, just in the inappropriate comments, happens a lot. Unwarranted touching, it's not okay. It needs to be addressed.
That kind of closes off our listening session that we had for Kent Lake. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
Hello. Just to reiterate what they said, thank you for listening to us. I'm Aisha Torre. I'm a junior at Meridian High School.
Hello, my name is Fatima Hussein. I'm also a junior at Meridian High School, and I just want to thank you for listening to us. So similarly, we had a listening session at our school. The purpose of our listening session that we created was to plan an interactive listening session for the student body at Meridian High School to discuss safety. Our student team met over 6 times over the course of 2 months. We had 4 student leads who participated consistently.
So our goal with this was to plan and lead a student safety listening session that we felt included the voices of a diverse group of students. To do this, we decided that we felt that the rest of the student population should have a hand in who got picked to come to this listening session, because we felt if we picked, we'd end up just picking our friends and people who had similar perspectives to us. So to do that, we had teachers nominate students that they felt would be a good fit. And then during an HSB, we had the student body vote on who they felt would best represent them at this meeting. And we had 3 students from each grade level come, and then we arranged them into tables that had 1 student from each grade level so they could all hear what people of different age groups were thinking. And then after the listening session, we wanted to be able to share the information gathered with the staff and students who weren't present. So the idea to do that was to share that at a staff meeting.
As for my experience, I appreciate that this opportunity that Ms. Frost put together for us. All of our students, I appreciate the opportunity that was offered to all students at our school, and it gave us a chance to use our voice and express our opinions and feelings. It was important to us, but most importantly, that we were able to craft a listening session the way that we thought that it would work best, because I feel like we know our student body the most, and we know we have voices that really want to be heard. We know how to put it together. So we also want to point out that it was very important, or it was important to me that that chance was given to us. Most things that include a group of people that we do at school is put together by the staff and the way that they think it should work. Like we have listening sessions, small circles in our classes, but this was something that we get to create ourselves. Those listening circles weren't created by us. The questions were not created by us. But this listening session was. All of the questions that were asked to the student body were questions that we felt were the most important to ask. We thought that the way that it would work best to receive the most feedback was the way that Aisha just described it. We had a student from each grade at each table, and they were all able to share their opinions. We asked the most important and insightful questions, but most importantly, how we felt that it was important how the staff who put it together made us feel heard, seen, and comfortable.
So one of the topics we discussed at our listening session was bathroom safety. This is an issue that they also apparently had in Kent Lake. One thing I feel that might be particular to KM, I'm not sure, is that there are less girls' bathrooms than guys' bathrooms. And so one issue we have is because our SSOs are all male, they can't really go into the bathroom, right? And so you have people in there vaping, smoking, doing whatever. And so because they can't do anything to regulate what people are doing in the bathroom, because you can't have guys staying in a bathroom, the bathrooms get closed. And so then you have girls who, you know, may be on their period, and where do they go? And so I feel like that's a really big issue we're having at KM recently, is that we'll have both our bathrooms in the main building closed and nowhere to go. We also talked about mental emotional health. One big thing at KM is that lots of students felt that they could make personal connections with teachers and that could help them with their mental health, but they felt like there weren't places where they could be discussing things as a group with other students, or they wish that there was someone that was specifically there to address mental health instead of us having to burden, I guess, our teachers with things that it's not really their job. Their job is to teach us, and some students feel like the teacher shouldn't be the only option for them to go to talk about their home situation and how they're doing mentally.
I hosted the table for physical safety, and some of the things that the students said about Kent Meridian was the campus being open is a really big threat. So at each table, for all 16 students that I asked if they felt safe at KM, all of them said no, they did not feel safe at KM, which is interesting because those were 16 students, all from different grade levels, and all of them have been at school for a variety amount of time. So all of them feeling unsafe is something questioning. It's a big question to ask, right? It's like, why do all these students feel so unsafe? And a big thing that came up was the campus being really open. And recently we've had things happening at KM, which I understand is kind of out of out of our reach. We can't always like fix every single problem, but we have had people walking onto our campus just because they can, because our school is practically like, there's a public road in the middle of our school. And we do have gates, but that doesn't really necessarily address the issue as much as it should. And I did talk to the SSOs at our school. I had a private conversation with them in which they both strongly felt that having a female safety or resource officer at school to assist with safety threads, or someone that the girls can talk to about female-related problems, is something that they really want the district to strongly think about. I think it's really important not to only just have a female safety officer, but have more safety officers at our school, simply because the Kent Meridian student body is really diverse, and it's different from Kentwood or Kent Ridge or Kent Lake. Our student body needs more safety officers and resources for students to go and get the help that they feel like they might need. Another thing is after-school safety. Students, a lot of students in our school they do sports, they are in cheer, they are in basketball, and these sports that happen in the fall, we all know that it gets really dark really early, around 4 p.m. And me being there also, I've been there really early, and it feels scary because there's no lights open, barely any. The campus is practically wide open. There's no security there. So it's a valid reason why students might feel unsafe after school, and it might not repress, but this might be a reason why they felt like, oh, I don't want to do sports because I might feel unsafe after school. But it's also important to note, again, back about the safety officers, that seeing a cop at school might feel very scary for some students because they might think that we have an actual threat. And this is about the actual police, seeing a police car, not the resource officers themselves, but seeing a cop at school. We might think that there's something going on, an immediate threat that needs to be addressed, something that's bigger than our officers at school can handle.
So next steps. When it comes to the SROs and SSOs, we feel like it's important that at KM they build relationships with students because I don't know if you've noticed, but KM is pretty diverse. And so lots of our students don't feel comfortable around our SRO because, you know, he is a police officer. And so we feel like one big way to change that would be to build relationships. Like I know personally, and this is a sentiment that was echoed by a couple of the other people that worked on our listening session, I didn't even know any of our security officers' names before we started doing this, you know? And it would be nice if it was something where students felt that they were introduced to them and they could go to talk to them if they had an issue, instead of it just being like these people that stand in the hallway, you know? And then moving on into next year, we really feel like at KM specifically, student mental health needs to be something that is addressed. It's becoming a pretty serious problem at our school that students don't feel safe mentally and emotionally, kind of to express who they are, and they don't feel like they have a place they can go to, and we want that to be something that is changed. What do you think, Scott?
Last thing I want to add, when it comes to mental health, I really wish that more teachers at Meridian knew how to host listening sessions or circles in our classrooms where we could discuss discuss things that are going on around school, how we might feel about some things, and just like every month, just, you know, it's just a way to build relationships with our teachers, because I feel like a big factor into mental health is if we have a relationship with our teacher, we also feel like, you know, we have somebody to talk to, because one time at my little circle in school, my teacher asked us if we had somebody at school, an adult, who we felt like we could talk to. Everybody in the circle said no. That concludes it for our listening session.
You're going to make sure to use this microphone. You can move it up. But we can hear you, okay?
First of all, I would like to thank you guys for letting us come here, listen to what our concerns are. And first of all, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Logan. I am a junior at Kentwood High School.
I'm Lillian Weatherly. I'm a freshman at KAR.
I'm Brianna Knight. I'm a freshman at Kent Ridge.
So our purpose for this is to create a group to come together and to create and plan a meeting for other students to bring their concern to us, the good, bad, and the ugly of KR. We were able to bring others together and listen to others' opinions and around our four main topics: mental health, bathroom, general building, and social media. Our students gave us very good feedback on the topic, and during our final general feedback session, the other students who were invited, we invited like 4 from each grade, and we brought them, and they brought us their concerns about Kent Ridge and advisory. We know that is part of the contract, and we have asked, and we are working with Ms. Stapleton to see if we can change it to like a homeroom or a stay place where teachers would get to know their students. Because we did a survey after, and some of the advisory teachers don't even do the advisory lesson at all. And our goal to listen to the concerns of many students who represent Kent Ridge and provide feedback to our group. And we invited a group of staff members to come in afterward so we can tell them our concerns and they can hear them. The students' experience, it went well, and we were successful, and the staff thought we did very well, and they were thankful for the information that they are taking in mind. Staff were concerned about the well-being of the students and the future of KR. And we invited our incoming principal, Ms. Ernst, to listen to our concerns.
The topics that we had went over were mental health, bathroom safety, social media, and general building safety. As far as what we had said in the meeting, a lot of our students feel that our community was based off of a very failed experience and things that people, especially students, don't feel like they're being heard about anything that is really going on. For general building safety, for as far as I know, like our security guards and stuff like that, not many students feel like they are doing their job or doing their part for our school. They do feel like that they should step up more as far as their, as far as their job and as what they need to be doing, and that they're not going to the certain extent that they need to be for us. As far as mental health, it is taken very lightly at our school. It is not taken very seriously. As far as mental health, it also comes with sexual assault matters that is not being provided or anything for us of any knowledge that we would know if anything were to happen to us. We don't know who to go to, what to do, or anything of that matter. And if that information is provided to us, we have no knowledge of it because it was never spoken of to us. As far as bathroom safety, we do have bathrooms that are open and stuff like that, but there is being drug problems and stuff like that in those bathrooms, and those things get shut down instead of groups being made that have solutions, as in like drug abuse and stuff like that, to help us instead of just ignoring us and saying, well, okay, well, you're doing bad, so we're not going to help you. And so I think one of those solutions would be creating groups for drug safety and drug addiction and stuff like that so people can talk to us. As far as social media, there's a lot of bullying that goes on social media to our students. There is females, one of the topics that was a topic that I had covered with social media as far as the groups, and they had said that there was a girls ranking page on how the ugliest girl and the beautifulest girl went to our school and stuff like that. It was a very horrible experience that had happened at our school. And we know that our school can't do much because it is social media, but instead of using it as an outlook of bad things, we could use it as an outlook of good things, promoting our, school and promoting our shows and promoting just things that we're doing individually. And yeah.
So as for our next step, our next steps consist of many different ideas. For instance, we thought about re-examining the KR practices and traditions to ensure that all students are represented equitably by honoring and elevating students of color, different sexualities, genders, and cultural backgrounds. At KR, we are very proud of our diverse student body, and we would like to honor and elevate, I just repeated that, oops. We would like to recognize the need for building a foundation for the community with the current diverse student population and focusing on enhancing the experiences of students and staff at KR and just building a more secure connection linking the two groups together. The programs we would then like to partner with the staff, of course, is the creation of mental health programs, sexual assault and abuse, and then drug substance abuse. And then we, as a committee, want to continue partnering with admin and staff to better our school community and for the future of KR in our school.
That concludes our presentation.
Hi, my name is Janice Clemens. I'm a junior at Kentwood High School, and I would like to thank you first for listening to the schools before us and listening to our school as well.
Hi, hello. I'm Alyssa. I go to Kentwood, and I am a freshman, and I'm kind of nervous. So let's get this done. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of our purpose, goals, and student experience, since you've heard from the other schools, and we have, for the most part, a very similar experience to them. The purpose of our listening sessions were to come together as a very diverse group of students. Honestly, all the students that were part of our design team came from very different parts of our school. So it was really nice to get to know people that we haven't seen before, some new faces, and learn how other people view the same place that we go to every day. So that was really nice, and also to hear the voices of other students that we came in contact with when we had our listening session. Our goals were just to find out what everybody was thinking, thoughts on some pretty big issues that we all kind of knew were things that we had to address, and if we didn't address them, they would just become bigger issues in our school. And our student experience was honestly pretty positive. We were really nice to each other and just kind of built more community at Kentwood, which I think would be a very positive thing to keep doing at our school, just because a lot of us are getting to know each other way better when we're talking about things that we have in common.
So as every other group has done, we did a listening session thing where we asked a bunch of students to talk about how they felt in school. And so a lot of them were talking about the homework and how it caused a big burnout for them, and so they missed a deadline and they couldn't reopen that deadline or get a good grade for it, so it brought their grade down. Another one was that there hasn't been any extracurricular activities since COVID has gone away and all. So yeah. Go.
So for physical safety, we talked a lot about bathrooms, and as you heard in other schools, there's a big bathroom issue, but I think at Kentwood we had a little bit of a different take on the bathroom safety issue when it came to our listening session and hearing from students. There are lots of students that congregate in our bathrooms. Some students use the term jewel circles, where people use vape pens in larger groups in their bathrooms, and sometimes people sit in the stalls of the bathrooms and prevent people from being able to use them. But something that we heard from the students in our listening session was that a lot of students at our school, personally, aren't really interested in going to all of their classes, and so they were going to be skipping class anyways, and we're thinking about if they're going to skip class, we'd rather them skip class somewhere safe, where the worst thing that they're doing is using a vape pen in our bathrooms, instead of doing something else, like if we were to kick them out of our bathrooms without another place for them to go, they would just leave campus. And if they leave campus during school hours and something happens off campus to one of our students, that's a bigger issue, and it's an even bigger safety concern. So we just thought that that was a really interesting point to bring up with our bathrooms, as well as the fact that it prevents people from being able to use them throughout the school day. And then we also talked a lot about safety officers, but we'll talk about that with our next slide.
So during the emotional health talk, a lot of them said that they don't know anything about how to deal with emotional health, how to experience it, what to do, all that stuff. Because teachers don't really teach you about your mental and emotional health unless you're like an advisory and they talk about it. They also said that the counselors there were for academically, and so when they would go to the counselors and they like told them they had mental health problems, they wouldn't help. They would only be able to help them academically. So they thought that they would split them up into one side being academic and one of them being emotional and mental health, because it would separate the two from closing into, and they can focus on one thing and the others can focus on the another.
And the last thing that we talked about in our listening session was our staff supports. So this covered every staff member in our school, from teachers to administration to even our janitorial staff and SSOs. One of the biggest things that we heard from students in our listening sessions and outside of our listening sessions in other private conversations were that we have a lot of rules at our school, but not all of the rules are being enforced. And if they are being enforced, not very strongly and not by everyone. And it just really depends on who you get caught by if you break a rule, for the most part. And that kind of makes a culture at Kentwood where people know that there is a rule against skipping class, but if I don't get caught by this one teacher who always brings you to the office, then nothing's really going to happen to me. And so I don't have to be that careful about breaking the rules. I don't have to be very apologetic about it either. And so a lot of people don't think that the rules at our school are very productive, for lack of better terms. And then another big thing that we talked about with staff supports, especially with teachers, is that we don't have a lot of academic support for students that helps the students that need it. We do have Conks for Success, which is an after-school program for tutoring for students who can be there after school, but a lot of students who suffer with mental health and have to take mental health days, so they miss multiple class days and miss lessons and instruction. They also miss the opportunity to learn that curriculum that was taught that day. And instead of the teacher sitting back and waiting and trying to make sure that everybody's caught up, they keep plowing forward with their curriculum, which prevents those students from being able to catch up. And then, as we talked about in mental, it kind of makes people fall behind and not really want to catch back up because they don't think that they can. And then also with our student athletes, we are called student athletes, but a lot of the time we don't feel like it because we miss classes sometimes for sporting events, and we work really, really hard to perform on the athletic field, whether it's football, basketball, or the wrestling mats or anything of that nature. But when we miss something in class, we have to make it up on our own time or else our grades will suffer in class. And it's very often stressed that we need to pass our classes to be able to compete. But at the same time, it's more than just passing for some of us. For people in AP classes, it's more than just passing. We want to get that A, but a lot of the times it's not possible, or it's possible, but it's very, very difficult for us. So we'd like to see some help with our staff support to be able to really be students first, and get that academic support where it's needed, because not everybody has the same needs as others. Do you want to do that? We can split it.
So our SSOs at our school are loved by everyone. And they really make a really good effort to try and be part of the Kentwood community. Instead of just policing it and making sure you're safe, they actually try to become one of those figures in your life who you will look forward to seeing every single day. Students feel that if we receive an SOR on campus, that not only are the SSOs not enough, but whatever is going on campus is going to be severe enough for us to need police officers on campus. And students might also have concerns of the backgrounds of the police officers that they may be stationed at Kentwood.
Yeah. So we have a little bit more of that with the SROs. We don't currently have any SROs at our school, and when we're talking with the students, it made them question whether or not there are things going on at our school that require having police officers at our school. Our SSOs are very, very capable, and they do a very good job. And whenever we are in need of a police officer on campus, our administration will call the police officers in a non-emergent or emergent 911 phone call, and the situation will be handled, and then the police officers would leave campus. But having a police officer stationed on campus would make a lot of people wonder what's actually going on in my school, and it would raise a lot of questions and actually would make a lot of people feel a lot less safe in our school. For example, today we were walking through the halls, and a couple of people noticed and brought up to me, since they know that I'm on this team, that they saw they didn't know if it was a police officer in our school or just an SSO that we didn't recognize, but they were wearing a bulletproof vest. And they were wondering why we need a bulletproof vest at Kentwood. Are we having gun problems at Kentwood that are under wraps that we don't know about? Just things like that are just raising questions, and people are just really unsure and don't know where to get those kind of answers. And then at some schools, there have been issues with what kind of people are going to be stationed at their school. There have been situations where there's police officers that are stationed at a certain high school that have shot people, shot minors, and that concerns a lot of people because they don't know what the police officers would do in a situation at their school and if they would be safe around somebody who carries a gun at school. And I know that that's a concern that a lot of people have brought up for us.
For the 2022 through 2023 school, I don't know why I said 2023. Continuing the student design teams, also student listening sessions with process from the district's help and support.
As we mentioned earlier, it was really, really helpful for us to be able to get to know other people at our school that we wouldn't have usually come in contact with. It's really nice to know that we as a community hear each other and that there are also people in our community that are willing to step up and do things like this and stand in front of the Kent School District School Board and try to do something about the issues that we're hearing about. One last thing with the SROs and SSOs that we heard about that I actually got inspiration for listening to the other schools is that because all the Kent schools are so different and in different locations and different environments, different things are needed for different people. And at Kentwood, we don't feel like we need more people at our school to be doing those kinds of things. Maybe having a female around would be nice for a lot more female students in our school, but we love our SSOs a lot, and a lot of people have described them as heroes in our school community. There have been actually paintings hung at our school by our senior class of 2022 of our SSOs in our commons. So we do really appreciate and love our SSOs, and we think that we're pretty good on our safety staff. And that's it for Kentwood.
All right, we're going to move into the next section. I do want to thank our student leaders who showed up today and told their truths. They told their truths, the good, and or as one of the students said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it is their truths and it is real. And you know, when I was a principal, I sought input from staff, students, and parents. And you hear feedback sometimes that you don't necessarily want to hear, but it helps you to design something moving forward that is a better system. And so I think that is what we've heard today. Now, I do want a little bit of direction from the board right now because, you know, we designed this as a community, both a listening session or for you to hear what the students brought forward, but also as a community listening session that anyone might show up and want to give community input. When I've done an assessment of the crowd, it appears we have our students and we have a number of principals and other district staff here. So we were going to limit your questions to the students a little bit, but I'd like to let it kind of go a little further and let you ask the questions of the students because we don't necessarily have a community that has shown up to share a lot. But I don't want to do that without the permission of the board.
You have my permission.
Love it.
Discussion?
Yeah. Okay. So what I'd like to do is do you want to just throw out the questions to anybody, or would you rather have each school come up separately and then ask your questions?
Do we have a mic? Do we have like a
Are they just going to go?
walk around, like a cordless or something that People who wanted to answer a question could.
Shoot, no, we didn't. Or did you have one? Okay.
Emilio might know.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go, like, what was that? I was going to date myself and say the Donahue Show. But most people in here wouldn't even know what that is. So,
Can I give accolades before we ask questions?
Sure.
I do want to, I really appreciate the students from all the schools and the design teams. I know back in, was it August? I don't even remember, where we had the discussion, and one of the things I had brought up is I really want to hear from the students, and I don't want it to be performative. I love to see that the students were planning it. They did it. They invited the students discussions. I love that I heard the one group say adults weren't invited, which I think is amazing, because it's true, like a lot of my nonprofit work, we always separate students and adults, because adults will talk over students and not listen to students, and students in their own voices. I don't care if what they say is inappropriate or swear or whatever. It's their voice, it's their thoughts, it's their truth. So I really do appreciate hearing from all the different schools. And based on what I thought back in August, like all the schools were going to say different things, and some were going to have different opinions about different things. And of course, we heard it, and it's true. And so I was really glad to actually just hear it and not make assumptions about what the students are going to say, but to actually hear the students say it. So thank you to all the schools who came in and presented. I really do appreciate your feedback.
Great.
I'd like to echo on that. One thing that you might not be aware of, but we've had ongoing meetings with the South King County Coalition, and they have, one of the things that they brought up was things that were happening in our schools, and they want to hear from our students too, and we're honoring that in these talks, and I think that's very important. Again, I love hearing from you kids. You're our customers. You are our customers. And I'd just like to take this moment to give you another round of applause by all the audience.
all right, so let the board direct that, and we've got a couple microphones that will, if students, if you feel like you have a good answer to a question that the board has posing, then we'll get you the microphone.
We're going to Director Clark.
And this is basically for whoever wants to respond to it, but the presence of an SRO gives you access to a police officer with the ability to make an arrest. Now, they're not there to make arrests. They are there basically to be approached, in my opinion. And the catch there is there are things, and we'll call them simply crime, but I'm going to give you a very specific because it exemplifies the problem. Let's say I have a student who is very upset when they come to school, and the reason for it is a domestic violence incident at home. And the question becomes, who do they share with? Well, that's my question to you.
Is it on? Is it on? Okay. I think that it's very important that students, I think that first we need schools to create the kind of resources to give to students, and always talk, like it needs to be a constant reminder where students can go to talk about these kind of things, because this is like an incident that might happen once at the beginning of the school year, or it might happen like at any given moment, like it's abuse and it's violence, and there's no like specific time for it. But I think that students need to have they need to be reminded of the resource that schools need to create. Because I myself, if there's something that goes on at home, I'm not really sure who to talk to, because my school has never informed me of who to talk to. And if you want me to talk to the security officer, the police officer, then you need to also establish a relationship. I need to create a relationship with him, because I'm not gonna just talk to this random man about what's going on at home. I don't feel safe. I don't feel comfortable even sharing what's going on. No matter what he might say, I don't feel comfortable. That's why I think it's very important to build relationships. And I do want to shout out the SRO at our school, because I acknowledge, that he's not there to
be intimidating, and that he is trying to create relationships. And he did point that out at the listening session, so I do want to thank him for that. I think that's him right there. Hi. But yeah, that's all that I have to say about it.
Okay.
Sorry. For our Jackson Ridge, we had a meeting with Ms. Stapleton this last week, and in the office, we had a social worker who we are interviewing. So I think that would be also a really good resource we have.
I personally think that not everybody feels safe talking to a police officer, even if it is about something that is illegal. And so something that Fatima brought up earlier when she was talking about her school's presentation was that people need to know that they have at least one staff member in their school that they can turn to. Because if somebody feels more comfortable talking to their English teacher, for example, and after school they say, hey, I need to talk to you about something, and they pull them aside and they have the conversation, that teacher can be a resource to connect them with another resource, whether that's the SRO or a police officer somewhere else. But not everybody's going to feel that sense of safety and security just because the police officer has the title of enforcing the law. Because not everybody has the same experiences with the law being enforced, and some people may not feel like the law is always enforced the same, justly.
I would also like to add on really quickly that I don't think the students at KR, at least right now, I don't think that the students know that they can talk to the safety officers. I think there's a very kind of big barrier between the safety officers and the students at KR, and we talk to the teachers or some teachers about what is advisory supposed to be, and that we learned that advisory was supposed to be where we talk about matters that happen outside of school and that sort of thing. And about 80% of the students we talked to in the listening session said that they did not feel that their advisory addresses things like that and talks about what they feel needs to be brought up, such as mental health and domestic violence. And I think that's a really important thing to notice, is that not only do the students not know their resources, but the resources that are being provided possibly aren't being utilized correctly.
I have a question, if that's okay. Or the listeners, any other feedback?
Could we go to Director Bettinger? She has an
I'm just kind of following the flow of the conversation. Again, I want to say thank you all for being here. My son just graduated from KR, and he talked about the bathrooms a lot too, but you guys didn't talk about it a ton. But he talked about vaping a lot too, and that that type of thing. So I would love to hear just your input on solutions that have you discussed any possible solutions for the bathroom situation?
We did. We said that we could possibly create a program that would help for drug abuse and drug use, because these are not things that are just happening. These are problems that people have. These are addictions. And instead of our staff noticing that they're addictions, they're saying, okay, well, you're just doing this, so we're going to take away the bathrooms for you and doing things like that. They're not helping us.
I think that so it's a very common issue at our school. I think every time I step in the bathroom, is the mic dead? Oh, I see it happening all the time, and I feel if students get caught by the staff, I feel there should be some sort of I wouldn't say a chance for them to redeem themselves or something, but instead of having direct discipline and probably informing their parents, maybe first, maybe give them resources to help them, because there's some people that are genuinely if they're stressed out, that's their outlet. There should be more suggestions to a healthier outlet or a healthier coping mechanism, because people use that as a mechanism for their depression or their anxiety. And they have friends and they're like, oh, so do you have these substances? I would like to use it too. So I feel if anything for them to have resources and to also get educated, and for them not to have like immediate like discipline, like, you know, because I feel like the anxiety that goes through a student, or the fear that they have that they're like, oh my God, I just got caught, my parents are gonna know about this. Like, I feel like that their whole world just gets paralyzed, and they just feel like everything just falls apart. And who knows if it doesn't even solve the issue. Like, maybe it's just gonna make them want to abuse of the substance more. So I feel like maybe helping them manage, or to educate them more about these issues.
I think also that it would help to have a female safety officer, so that if there are problems with drug abuse and then getting into fights in the bathroom, female safety officers can enter the female bathrooms, and then male safety officers can enter the male bathrooms, so that there isn't that conflicting opinion of, oh, well, stuff happens in the girls' bathroom, but the boys' bathroom is different, or like the boys' bathroom is fine because the safety officers are in this area, and kind of if there was more safety officers.
I think a solution that our school uses a lot when there's issues is locking the bathrooms, and it just takes away the privilege of having that bathroom for people who aren't vaping or using dab pens or anything in the bathrooms. I think a better solution would be to closely monitor the bathrooms instead of just closing them down, because our freshman year there was a lot of vandalism and vaping, and there's not as much vandalism as there used to be, but there's probably more vaping and drug use in the bathrooms than we'd like to care to admit, and it's a huge issue, but closing the bathrooms doesn't solve it. It just makes people more pissed off, for lack of a better word.
Literally.
Yeah, like I've known someone who like couldn't find an open bathroom and had to leave the school to go to her house to go to the bathroom. Like it's really frustrating, because you go in there and there's like a group of people in the bathroom and you don't feel comfortable using the bathroom because they're there, they're vaping, they're talking. It's just like you feel like you're being judged if you're actually going to the bathroom to use the bathroom. So I think there needs to be better solutions for it than just closing them.
And so I'm a junior at Kentwood, but this is my first year in Kent School District. So I have experience in other school districts in different places. And I personally think something that I've noticed ever since I got here, and that I'd like to bring up to the board today, is that we need to have a different solution, and not just, oh, like, we do need to help people. We're all, like, everybody who said we need to help, you're right. But I think we need to start a new program to help people who are losing interest in school and don't want to be there, because they're going to keep skipping class, and they're going to keep finding somewhere to go, and they're going to keep self-medicating, which is something that we talked about in our listening session. We think that a lot of the substance abuse in our school is more because of self-medication than anything, and that's also because of our mental safety and emotional safety decline ever since COVID kind of messed with things, and even probably before. So I think that there should be a program from Kent School District that kind of addresses the root problem, because yes, there are a lot of people who are in the bathrooms and it's really annoying, but we have to think about what's causing them to go to the bathrooms, what's causing them to be out of class in the first place, because if we don't do that, then we're just going to move them from one location to a different one and cause a different problem, or put themselves in danger in a different location. So I think that the Kent School District should think about a different program to assist them, especially because teacher contracts prevent teachers from being able to watch students off their regular class schedule or covering for a class, because it's literally against their contract to do so. Even if they're not doing anything, they cannot do it. It's against the contract that they signed, and then they could get fired for it, and fired for protecting students. So I think that we should look into something else.
I agree. By closing down the bathrooms, I really don't think that's a solution. If anything, it just pisses people off, and by being completely honest. And like, especially for the girls, like girls, we need to do our necessities. And for there to only be one bathroom unlocked upstairs and downstairs, and like they always blame, like they're super harsh on our tardies now. So I'm a student that's usually like pretty on top of their attendance, but I've been getting so many tardies just because I want to use the bathroom, but there's no bathrooms available, and it really gets me upset because I'm like, how am I supposed to, like, if I don't get in trouble on this side, I'm gonna get in trouble on the other side, and if I don't get in trouble on the other side, it's gonna be trouble on the other side. So I think shutting down the bathrooms isn't an issue. If anything, we need to have some sort of program or a conversation that needs to be opened up about substance abuse, and it just gives them a reason to leave school. Honestly, locking the bathrooms, are like, okay, no bathrooms, okay, let's just dip, leave. So I'm sure like our principal can agree that tardies and absences is like, our skipping class is huge. So if anything, maybe organize something so we can like have an open conversation about it. Like a listening session.
As a person who has a bunch of friends who vape in the bathrooms, who self-medicate in the bathrooms, I have to leave class to go to the bathroom, and I have to walk all the way across a different building just to go to the bathroom because all the stalls are closed. Even if it's not just one group, it's one group and then a bunch of different people in one stall. And sometimes teachers will come in there and they'll quiet, and then they'll stop for just a tiny second, and once the teacher leaves, they'll just go back to what they're doing. So as of one recent meeting we had, and Janice said, we were thinking about a group where the students could be in a place where they would be watched and supervised instead of just leaving and hogging the bathrooms all to themselves, so that people could actually use the bathrooms so that we're not late or missing from our class.
So, and I'm asking someone in the district this. So some of our elementary schools have spaces if kids are just feeling overwhelmed, correct? Yeah, so I'm asking the district, just.
I would say they have different opportunities to be able, depending on what it is.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, because what I'm hearing is that I'm hearing a lot of awesome compassion for people to just get help. That's right. To get help for the people that feel like whatever they're doing, they have to self-medicate, and that bathroom seems to be feels safe to them, right? But then it creates a place where it doesn't feel safe to other students. But I'm hearing a lot of understanding and empathy, so that's really impresses me. I don't know the solution beyond, just those first steps. What I'm hearing is that, getting a safe place for them so they don't leave campus, but that so other students who actually want to use the facilities are able to do so. I really appreciate all your honesty. It's honest. It's awesome.
Vice President Mena.
I think Wally should go first. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forget about you, Director Farah. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was listening. I couldn't see the students, and you guys have that advantage by seeing the students, and it is my fault also about not being there. But I really feel hopeful that our future is in good hands. These kids know how to articulate themselves, know how to express themselves, and I really want to thank them from the bottom of my heart. They know, and I really want to let them know that adults don't know anything. You guys are the ones who know everything.
It's true.
And I want you to lead us and let us know how can we better. Thank you for doing that. how can we better serve you? Because we're all sitting here to make sure that we serve you. And I can speak for the entire board that we really are here to make sure that not only we listen to you, but we also make sure that your requests don't fall into deaf ears. So I heard few things tonight which are touching, because this is something that, you know, I have 4 kids that went through Kent School District, and I've heard this multiple times, which, you know, bathrooms, you know, that is given. I've heard so many of it. As a black man, I know how it feels when I see a officer with a uniform walking down the hallway. At this age, still have that. So therefore, I know when you say you're seeing an officer with a bulletproof walking down the hallway, that makes you wonder. And I can tell you that we will make sure that it does not fall into deaf ears. We will do whatever we can. I also heard the fact that there are no female officers, and that shouldn't be the case. That should be, without even saying, there should be female officers and SSOs which we will also look into it. And I also heard that you want to make sure that there are circles held for you to be able to express how you feel. And that to me is the thing that we're now experiencing, which is mental health. Many of the students are going through that, and it's not because we are not paying attention, but we don't know what to do. So that's what I mean when I say lead us, because you know how it feels to be in that school building, to be in that classroom. What are the things that you need? I just have one question, and then I wanted to ask, I don't know, one of the students can answer, but would it be better if we, of course, you know, make sure that the police officer that shows up to school is vetted, that it's not someone who has shot someone else and is still serving as a police officer? That's number one. Number two, would it be better if they don't wear a uniform or a bulletproof vest along the hallways or while they're at school? Anyone? You can.
I think that would help a lot, just because something that we've all kind of mentioned is that either our SROs and SSOs are very well knitted into our school community or they're not. And so having people that we all know and that we're kind of close with and that everybody has like a very similar bond with, and they're just friendly faces. If it's a friendly face, they could be a lot better utilized in our community than if they're a friendly face that's masked by everything else that they're wearing and everything else that is seen. Because it's all about first impressions, really, in the very beginning. So if you see a police officer, then you may turn the other way. But if you see somebody who's trying to help you, somebody who wants to help you, then, I mean, that might be a little bit of a different situation.
Absolutely.
I wanted to say, I understand that perspective. From my perspective, it's not the uniform that freaks me out, it's the gun.
Mm-hmm.
So an active duty police officer is going to have a gun, and so I almost feel safer when they're in uniform because I can see him and know that. Whereas if he's just another person walking down the hallway in normal clothes, I might not think, oh, that person has a gun when I see them. And so personally, I do feel safer when they're in a uniform.
I think them not wearing a uniform is unsafe for them because they're the ones who, if there is a dangerous situation, they're the ones running to it. And if there is a gun or a knife or something that they don't know about, if they're not wearing a bulletproof vest or their uniform, it puts them in harm. while it might make some students feel better because seeing the uniform can be scary, I think it overall might be worse because, like she just said, not knowing that someone is carrying a gun is even scarier than knowing that an officer is carrying a gun, if that makes sense.
I definitely agree with what they just said, and actually, I think I have a better recommendation for them. Instead of not wearing a uniform, not carry a lethal weapon. Because the fact that somebody could be walking around your school with a gun, that's what throws some people. And the fact that that gun could be turned on you at any moment in time, that's disturbing to a lot of people. And so the focus would be taken off of their education. It would be taken off of focusing on their mental health, focusing on their athletics, focusing on whatever they're there to focus on, and it will be put on focusing on the gun. So maybe finding a weapon that's less, or is not lethal, or maybe not having a weapon at all. I'm not sure, because I know at my previous school, they had, our SRO had a gun, but he had it in his car. And so if he needed it, he could go get it from his car. But there wasn't threats in our area that warranted him needing his gun on him at all times.
Okay.
I just want to add my perspective. I think that it's not realistic to ask of, I don't think it's a realistic expectation for our SSOs or even our SRO to not carry a weapon. If it's, I would say I would prefer it to not be necessarily lethal, so like an actual gun, but if it was like a taser, I would be more comfortable with that. But it's not realistic to ask them not to carry a weapon at school because it kind of defeats the whole purpose of their job, and they're trying to complete their job. But I think that, in my opinion, the SSOs at our school, I do kind of have a relationship with one of them. So seeing him in a uniform, not necessarily wearing a bulletproof vest, he does not wear that. That makes me feel more at ease about what's happening at our school. But just having a relationship with him makes me feel safer. So I think it comes down to the relationships that you have with your SSOs at school and the SROs. And I think a way to start having relationships is to first introduce students to the SSOs and the SROs at orientations, where there's going to be a large student body that is coming into a school. So if you want students to be comfortable, you need to build relationships. And the first step to building relationships is at orientations, assemblies, events, and not just have them standing there, but actively trying to engage with students, because that's building a relationship. But building a relationship is not standing there and expecting a student to come up to you and ask you questions and get to know you. You have to make the first step. That's how our teachers make relationships with us. So I think it should be also expected of our SSOs and SROs to also make that first step as well.
I agree with everything you said, but I kind of want to jump back to them not carrying a gun. I think somebody said it was unrealistic, which is very true. I grew up in California, and school shootings were a lot bigger there than they were here. And them not having a gun at all is scarier to me than them having one. I think it shouldn't be the first option. I don't think a lethal weapon should be the first thing they reach for, but if it's needed, then it's there and they have access to it, because it's sad, but at the time we live in, school shootings are a regular thing. You see them all the time, especially in the US. And we had a lockdown a couple months ago because students had fake guns that looked like real guns. So I think it's not realistic, is that what you said? For them to not carry a weapon. I just don't think it should be the first option unless it's necessary.
I think that the plainclothes officers would be a pretty good idea, but I still feel like the clothed officers, like that are in uniform, is a better idea for in school. Like have them have a less than lethal option for them on them and then have their, like she was saying, their lethal in their car that they can get later. It's like the officer is there as a signal that like you can go to them for like if something's happening. They're the people you go to and to solve those issues. But some people would be scared if they have like lethal on them. So if they just have a taser, or just have like beanbag rounds or something that they have, so they can diffuse situations without using lethal options, would be a better idea for us in our schools, because it just helps our kids be like feel more comfortable with the officers if they don't.
Nice.
I just want to also advocate for my school real quick. I have talked to the SSOs, and they really have tried their best to advocate for one more security officer at our school that's especially a female. So I would really like to take this moment to like beg for them, because I mean, I really acknowledge their efforts, and I really just want to contribute to that, because I understand how important it is, especially at Meridian, to have another security officer, but more specifically one that's a female, and one that is not, that also reflects and mirrors the student body. So somebody that is of color.
Yes,
Please?
yes, please. Just, let me just say this real quick. I've just kind of been dancing around it during this entire conversation, but I'm just gonna just come out and say it. As an African-American woman of color, or young woman, should I say, in the Kent School District, especially at a school that does not currently have an SRO, and in the current climate of the United States with the popularity of shootings of people of color, especially African Americans, I wouldn't feel safe having a police officer with a gun on campus, especially if they were not a police officer of color, just because of my experiences alone. And I'm just gonna say, my experiences didn't start with George Floyd. They didn't start with Breonna Taylor. I mean, when I was 7 years old and my little brother was 4, we sat in front of the TV and watched about, I don't know, 6-7 hours worth of footage and newscast of Trayvon Martin with my 2-year-old cousins and my 11-year-old cousin. So this is not something that's new to me. It's not something that is just kind of coming up and surfacing. I know it's new to some people because not everybody's been aware of it for the longest times, but it is something that I'm definitely thinking about on a regular basis. And so if I have a police officer at my school who is carrying a gun, that makes me feel unsafe, because even though it shouldn't happen, it happens in the United States all the time. And it's not something that if we just say, oh, maybe you shouldn't use your weapon like that, that's not going to stop it, because it hasn't stopped it for hundreds of years. And so I'm just addressing the fact that systemic racism is still a thing, and that in the Kent School District, we have an incredibly diverse population. So we have to think of the people who have been watching these things since they were really young, and the people who are very cautious about what they do and what they say and where they go, because they're scared for their lives because of things like this. So.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And we hear you loud and clear. And this thing is not, it's not going to fall into deaf ears. I can assure you that. This board feels, and please come back. We'd like to hear from you more. And I don't want to take more time, and I thank you for coming and giving us this. Thank you.
I'd like to give some time to Vice President
Pino. We talked a lot about physical safety, but I do want to talk about, I'm a health teacher, so I believe in mental, emotional health, safety. I heard some discussions about sexual health and sexual assault, I should say. But one of the things I heard, I think it was from the KM team, and I kind of heard it from the other teams, is about circles, and not just the listening sessions you all did, but your classroom circles. And as someone trained in restorative practices, check-in circles are always really important. So I want to kind of hear more about from any student about the importance of the circles, or if you do check-in circles, and how that contributes to like feeling mental and emotional safety at your school.
So one of our friends couldn't be here, he had work, but he was very open to possibly a homeroom, and that homeroom could be where people check in like in the morning, like, hey everyone, like how's your day? Like in one of my classes we do a temperature check, and it's like, okay, do you feel at a 0, like horrible, or do you feel like up here and you feel great? And I think that would be better for mental health and kind of circles, and then also possibly after school programs that could help. Like it could be optional, obviously, for people to come in and just, it could be run by students, listening to other students. And so it could be like, hey, come we can talk about whatever you want, you know. And then if it leads to talking about what is causing the problems that you have at home or inner turmoil, then I think that would be very helpful. And so, yeah.
I would like to add on to that. In ASB, we were working with Mr. Simonson, and our ASB suggested we do a check-in monthly or something. And now that Mr. Simonson is leaving, we have Ms. G stepping in for ASB, and she is totally on board with that. So I am saying that we should do like a monthly check-in.
I brought up the circles. How many people here have heard of a circle or have done a circle? Yay! That's not many. So my first experience with circles was in freshman year because of my Spanish teacher, Mr. Cadenas. And I want to praise him so much because doing those circles really not only like, in a way they saved my emotional and mental health. He was, and I'm a very big advocate for circles, and I want to also praise him for just leading circles and teaching other teachers at my school how to perform circles. So, and I also want to give praise to my teacher, what's it called? Senor Che. He also now instills circles in his classroom monthly. And I think that circles are a very important thing to just my life now. I even have circles with my boyfriend, and he's over there. Yeah, so I think that circles are very important. I think every single classroom needs to have one. I think every teacher needs to be able to know how to create a circle, to how to create an environment where students can feel like they can talk about whatever is like necessary, whatever is on their mind. And I think that like doing that is a way to just like preserving people's mental and emotional health, creating relationships with teachers, creating relationships with other students in the classroom who might find similar views on a certain question. So I was asked, like, is there any adult at school who you might feel comfortable talking to? And I said no, for the most part. I don't feel comfortable talking to most adults except for the teacher who hosts the circles and a few other staff members that I've been trying to build relationships with, and I condemn them for that. You know, it's not their job to like make sure that I'm, you know, emotionally and mentally feeling well, but he goes out of his way, and I think that all teachers should do that. It's like, I feel like it's their job, even though it's not really their job, but I feel like it is their job, you know? I feel like it's their job to take care of students' mental health and not just push on with the curriculum. Like, I think Janice was saying about how teachers push on with the curriculum. I'm an IB diploma candidate, and my teachers push on with the curriculum a lot more than I'd like, and I've missed over a month of school, and it's been a very rigorous week for me trying to get caught up in my work. And it just like, if they were to host circles and we were to talk about mental health, they would understand what is going on like with me and why I haven't been able to come to school, why I haven't been able to get my work done. And I feel like that way I would have been, it wouldn't be such a challenge right now. And I just feel like no matter what I do right now, it's not gonna I'm not gonna be able to get caught up. But if I had a relationship with my teachers, I feel like we would come to an understanding where one, I would pass the class at least. Two, we'd have a conversation, and three, we would build a relationship, especially because I'm gonna be coming back next year. And I would very much like to have a relationship with them. But I do think that it starts with the teachers and not the students, because they are the educators.
I think circles are very important. Like, they're just important in general, and they need to happen more. But I think mental health in general needs to be talked about a lot more, because when I think somebody mentioned there's monthly check-ins and stuff, and surveys that might happen that ask about your mental health. But if mental health isn't talked about enough and stressed enough, then people aren't really going to be truthful with it. I think, personally, I know a lot of people who lie on those surveys because they don't feel comfortable talking about it, because teachers and staff don't talk about it enough. I think it needs to become a norm to talk about it, because mental health plays a huge part in academic success. So I think it just needs to be more generalized.
I think that, first of all, circles are a great idea. And second of all, you said something that really hit. And it's mostly because right now we're all in finals, and a lot of people have missed some class this school year, whether it's because they had family stuff, mental health days, athletics, or because they got COVID and they had to quarantine for however long they had to quarantine for. I just want to challenge everybody in this room to think about how far we've come as a society, because we are talking about the education of students, but we've also addressed that all students are different, and different students are going to need different things to be successful. And I also want to challenge you to look into what your definition of success is, because success is just having a goal and reaching for it. If you're reaching for it, you're being successful because you're putting in the work. And I feel like in Kent School District, but also in the United States, we have a very, one-size-fits-all type of education system. And here in the Kent School District, we have iGrad, we have the outreach program, we have Kent Laboratory. But in our actual public schools, in our 4 schools that are represented here today, what are we doing for the people who are different than the cookie cutter model? I feel like that, just addressing the fact that we're different and different people need different things, and that would help people not fall behind as far. It would help people's mental health, their emotional health. It will help them not want to skip class and not parade in the bathrooms. It would help solve a lot of these problems if we dig deep and look into how we're educating our students and give our teachers the opportunity to dig deep into one specific kind of teaching, so that, as Fatima was talking about, they can actually build relationships with these students, because there's students who need similar things, and they can bond on that, and they can help each other, and they can inspire each other to do better and to be more successful because they're reaching for a similar goal. I think that we need to be able to educate each other, educate ourselves, and educate the people around us. Even if we're the first ones to start something, I mean, come on, let's look around. We're all different. Everybody in this room is different, but we need to find a way to take our differences and bring them together so that we can all be successful and not just the people that the system was built for.
To be honest, I don't really have an idea of what these circles are. I don't know what it is. I kind of want to tie that into that maybe let it be known that it's okay to talk about mental health, because as someone, personally speaking, at home, it is something that's really ignored. It's really it's like, what, mental health? What is that? Like, it's very much brushed aside. And there's people that genuinely suppress all their feelings. They let it bottle up, and it consumes them. It does affect their performance in school. It probably affects how they treat other people, and it reflects. And there's people that genuinely go to school thinking it's what I'm doing is fine. Like, not talking about anything is fine. Like, my parents told me that, my grandparents told me that, like my aunts and uncles told me that. So let it be known that it's okay, and maybe just find your people, make those relationships with staff, and possibly like admin, or just make that relationship you need. Also, what Fatima said, that it's important for also staff, teachers, admin to be making that first step into trying to kind of walk into the student's life and to build some sort of bond or trust between them. And also important to not break that trust and bond, because there's students that genuinely trust you with their life and what they're telling you. So for you to be spreading it or talking about it to your coworkers, it's just like, in a way, it's like heartbreaking. You're like, or it's just a lot of betrayal. So keeping that to yourself, and just keeping in mind that maybe there's a student struggling with, maybe you see students, their performance in school, you're like, you think you know what type of person they are, but the performance isn't adding up. So you might want to check in with them. You never know if asking them is okay, if they're okay, or asking them how their day's doing, how that can completely break them down inside, or just show that you care. You got to show them that you care, because there's people that genuinely walk into that school and they're like, nobody cares about me. Show students that you care about them and that you want to hear them out.
To add on, I would like to say that our theme for next year, KR, it's all in, and starting with the educational top, if teachers put all into seeing that a student isn't okay, and that maybe for one student, they're not okay in their first period, and the teacher comes up to them and they're like, hey, are you okay? And they're like, no, I'm not. And then they are able to have a connection and talk about what's happening. Or maybe for another student, their first period teacher asks, hey, are you okay? And they're like, no, I'm fine, when they're really not. But if every single teacher puts their all in, and all 6 periods a teacher asks if they're okay, by 6th period, they may feel, no, I'm not okay. And then that buildup is broken down. And adding on to what you said, just if everyone puts in their best in this, then starting at the top and going to the bottom, then I think everyone is able to kind of connect mentally and able to stand together.
I would just like to really stress, it's been talked about, Shaylee was talking about, that it's okay to talk about mental health, and I would just like to really stress that it's okay to not be okay. And I don't think that it's mentioned enough, because a lot of the time, especially within the pandemic, a lot of people are not okay, and they don't know that it's okay to feel different and not be okay with how they're feeling.
I am a person who has lied on a mental health test, so I definitely identify with that, with the fact that some people lie on them, and I can say as a person who has lied that they suck. So it's much better talking to someone face to face. But we're focusing, I feel a lot on kind of teachers and how we feel teachers should make those connections. I definitely feel there's some teachers who are. I'd like to shout out Miss Shoemaker, best teacher I've ever had. But I feel it also shouldn't be all on the teachers. While I do feel it should be part of their job to make sure their students are doing okay and that their students have the support they need, they can't do that on their own, and they can't just be expected to know how to do that. Sometimes teenagers are hard to talk to. And if teachers had their school district backing them up and making these programs that can help their students outside of the teacher having to talk to them during class time, then it makes it easier for students to form connections because they start to understand that being vulnerable with people is okay.
And one thing that I was thinking about while we're having this conversation is that it's not just students who are dealing with mental health issues. And so we're talking about different ways that we can help students figure this out and help students understand. But as you were saying earlier, Director Farah, that a lot of you guys just don't really know what to do about mental health stuff. And if you don't know what to do, then how are we to say that our teachers know what to do when they're feeling teacher burnout, when they're feeling like none of their students are interacting with them from the pandemic, that they don't want to do it anymore because they just don't love it as much as they used to. But maybe it's just that they're burnt out and they need help too. We can all help carry each other, but in order to do that, we need to have resources not only for the students in our schools, but for our teachers and for our janitorial staff and for our maintenance staff and for our IT crew and for our administrators and for our counselors. We need it for everybody, not just one group of people. So if we can just implement that everywhere at the same time, we can all grow together and help each other and make our community a lot happier, you know? And it's a lot easier to carry other people around you and help each other out when everybody's a little bit happier.
I want to just agree with what Janisa just said. I do think that we do want our teachers to help us, but it is, again, a little unrealistic to, put that pressure on them because at the end of the day, they're here to help us learn, and they might not be equipped with the right resources or even be in the right emotional or mental state to help us with what we are going through as well. And I think that we should have a listening session where students come together and they create an actual resource, because director just said, you guys, the teachers just they don't know, right? You guys are saying that you don't know, and as I guess being Gen Z, we're we gotta create change. So I think that having a listening session where students can come together and actually create a resource that they might like to see implemented in their school, not just for themselves but also for everyone around, just like Janice just mentioned. I think that would be a great start to creating an actual program or a resource that we can actually give to students or teachers when addressing mental, emotional, and physical safety and well-being.
I kind of want to, you talked about you praised your teachers that talk about mental health and stuff, and I feel like at Kent Lake we have a little bit of a different experience than you guys do. I feel like we're very lucky because our teachers have great relationships with us, and we feel okay talking about, I don't want to say all of us because that's not true, but most of the people I know, we feel okay talking about our mental health with our teachers because they talk about theirs with us and let us know when they're not okay because it shows. So when they're open about it, we feel like we can be open about it. So I don't know, I just want to say at Kent Lake, we're pretty lucky for having that relationship with our teachers.
I don't want to be that guy, but we do have a 7:30. I know that President Hamada hasn't had a chance to answer her questions, and we still wanted to have time to recognize you because we have some certificates for your hard work. So just wanted to make sure.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. I want to take this, and this is sad because it's a long topic, but in a different direction, a lot, unfortunately. And I mean, I've cried so many tears watching the TV screen that it just gets ridiculous with the shootings that have been going on. And it's not a surprise to you, you kids know. I'm wondering, and I've also seen that a lot of things have been stopped because students or adults said something, and felt comfortable to talk to anybody. I'm wondering what the atmosphere is with you guys and with students in your schools about, do you feel like you can talk to, if you hear something or see something on social media or know about something, you know, we don't want to tattle or rat out anybody. I understand that philosophy, but if you really see something that could be critical, do you think your students and feel comfortable coming forward with to an adult or somebody to make that known that, you know, something could potentially be happening?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
You want to go first? Okay. As somebody who has brought forward a real issue to the admin at my school, it was never followed up upon. I was coming to school late one day, and I had not been attending my 5th period class. And so this admin, staff at my school, they saw me, and we have a relationship to some degree, and I thought that I could go up to them and I could go up to her and say, hey, there's this thing going on, and I would like for you to address it, or just like have a conversation with the staff that it's happening with. And the first thing that she said to me was like, where are you going or something? I'm like, oh, I'm late to class. And she's like, oh, are you also attending? She was being very shady. And she made a very like quick remark about me not going to 5th period. And I was like, huh? Yeah, very condescending. And I was like, I'm trying to like talk to you about something that I overheard other students sharing, and it was about something that was happening at our school with a teacher teaching a lesson, or like a whole unit about racism and the history of Black Americans in America, and the whole entire lesson was honestly very degrading from what I heard. And the kind of things that were being shown and the way that the students had to talk about like debates, whether people should be able to use a racial slur, and people had to sit there and debate whether they should or shouldn't be able to use a degrading racial slur, And I was trying to talk to her about this issue, and she very much said, oh yeah, I'll follow up on that, and never brought it up again. And I was like, oh my God. And here are students who were in my classroom and telling me how uncomfortable they felt, and how they felt that their teacher was low-key kind of being racist, and they just didn't feel comfortable in that atmosphere, nor did they want to attend the class any longer. And when I tried to bring this up, it was just completely overlooked. So I felt like, even though I felt comfortable talking to a staff member about what was going on, the whole entire issue was completely disregarded, and we just had to move on with our lives, even though students were clearly being affected by what was going on in a classroom where a teacher is teaching something to students. And if somebody, I don't want to say that students or teenagers are gullible, but they kind of are, and if they're being taught about something incorrectly, it might leave an impression on them, and it might, I guess they're not gonna, I don't know how to, huh?
They're not gonna think for themselves.
Yeah, it's just like they're given this impression about a topic that should be taught differently, and they should be educated about it, and instead they're kind of being thrown into an uncomfortable situation where they just don't know what's right and wrong.
So you didn't feel heard?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Really quick on the racial slurs thing. It was not a choice for students whether they got to argue it. The teacher that did this told them, you are arguing this side and you are arguing that side. So you had Black students arguing that white people should be allowed to use the N-word against their will.
Yeah. That's concerning. I'm just gonna say that first before I say my thing. My thing's a little bit more positive, a lot more positive. During our listening session at Kentwood, we had conversations with our principal. She was there during our planning meetings, and we talked a lot about the fact that our administration does look into the things that are happening around our school. At least she can vouch for what she's done. But there's a line of what she can tell us and what she has to keep private to protect the privacy of the staff involved and students involved. And so I just want to commend Dr. Kedover for making the effort to make it well known to the student body that, or a little bit well known, more well known, because a lot of people still think that, you know, the administration doesn't do anything about anything that's reported to us. But it's a conversation that's being had. It's a hard conversation that's being had, and it's something that we're kind of talking about in our school. So I really appreciate that that is going to be some growth that we have at Kentwood.
And forgive me, I want to continue, I'd like to continue this conversation all night. We have a hard stop at 7:30, and we have some recognition, but first of all, I want you to know, thank you for coming. We heard you, the entire board. We will continue this. I personally, and I think everybody up here, really enjoyed the conversation, but it's just a start, a very small start. So thank you. Now we have some recognition here. So.
Absolutely, yes. One more big round of applause for our. And this is not the end. This is the beginning. You will continue to be engaged by your administrators. Those of you who haven't graduated last year, but if you want to come back and be part of the solution, that's good too. But that will be a continuing conversation with your administrators. As you can see, they are all here tonight supporting this work. So let's have our student participants come up here, and we'll get them their certificates, and then hopefully we'll get a picture with the board. So yeah, right up front. Do you want to? Yes.
I guess maybe 10, so maybe 5 in the front, 5 on the ground step, and then 5 in the back. Can we have one of you step up on the first step? And it's it for you. Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. Great. Yeah, facing you and start there, and about the board on this side. Exceptional. Hold up those certificates. You talking about that? Everyone look at this camera, smile. Any of you all want a picture? Just hold up your certificates. It's right there. Yep.
All right, we're just going to do a little bit of administrative, and that we need to gavel the meeting closed, and then we'll be free to have some conversations if you want to stick around.
Okay, what a fun time was had by all. It is 7:28. Thank you so much for coming again, and everybody coming. We will continue this conversation, and we are gaveling out, and we are adjourned at 7:28.
Thank you.